Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. A major crisis unfolding in Ukraine as the possibility of full-scale war with Russia seems to grow with each passing hour. Vladimir Putin has already seized, in essence, two breakaway provinces in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbas region, and there's already been a large military deployment inside of the country to those regions, with many more troops stationed around Ukraine's borders. There could be an all-out war at any moment. Now, this is primarily, obviously, a problem for Russia and Ukraine, and this is something that European allies are watching very closely. The U.S. has a role to play, a diplomatic one, and so far it seems to have, on that front, failed. And yet, here we are in the midst of what is quickly turning into a political battle over Democrats who claim that somehow Joe Biden is doing a good job with all of this. If you're looking for foreign policy gravitas, Nancy Pelosi is certainly not a name that would come to mind quickly, but here she is trying to tell everybody out there that what Biden has managed so far on Ukraine has been outstanding.
We are very proud of our vice president our president whose leadership has been outstanding, and the message was delivered to the conference by the vice president. It was well received, it was unifying, it was firm in terms of how we would work together for sanctions should there be an invasion of Ukraine.
Outstanding leadership from Joe Biden that hasn't prevented the conflict from beginning and looks like it's going to escalate dramatically at any moment, putting forward a package of sanctions that no one really thinks is going to change the calculation for Russia and will largely just be something that agitates Putin and those who are supportive up to this point of what he's doing. Yeah, that's where we are right now. Doesn't look like it's going to change much of anything. But understand this, there will be ramifications for you, for the American people at home as a result of all of this. For example, Joe Biden, even yesterday, gave a speech during which he, at different points, seemed kind of like he was a little drowsy, a little bored, just running through the motions. Because what's the guy really going to do at this point? His administration's already in free fall. Biden did say that there would be consequences of defending freedom. Watch.
As we respond, my administration is using every tool at our disposal to protect American businesses and consumers from rising prices at the pump. As I said last week, defending freedom will have cost for us as well and here at home. We need to be honest about that. But as we do this, I'm going to take robust action to make sure the pain of our sanctions is targeted at the Russian economy, not ours.
Targeting the Russian economy and not ours. Meanwhile, there's already a lot of economic challenges that the Biden administration has failed to meet. And this is likely to make it all somewhat worse because there'll be a shock in oil prices if full-scale war breaks out. The Russians are already turning toward China for a means of evading sanctions to the degree that they can. And there'll be all kinds of implications for stock markets, for energy prices. And so this is an opportunity, I guess, for propaganda from Democrats. I know that seems counterintuitive, but CBS News put this out. The U.S. economy has been hit with increased gas prices, inflation, and supply chain issues due to the Ukraine crisis. Let's understand this for a moment, friends. The reality here is that hasn't really hit yet. It may hit. What we've seen up to this point has been a lot of ineptitude and stupidity from Biden and his top foreign policy people, but by no means has the Ukraine crisis been the cause of all of this. No, it's been before that. All these things were happening before that. And so there's going to be a lot of attempts out there to try to find ways to tell everybody that this is not Biden's fault. He's doing a great job. It's not Biden's fault. Also blame the economy. And by the way, if things get really ugly, the next move will be for them to say that this is the fault of, you guessed it, not even Vladimir Putin so much, Donald Trump, person that scares them and that they hate more than anybody else. Here is a tweet from MSNBC from the Maddow blog. Why didn't Russia invade Ukraine during Trump's term? Perhaps because Putin was so pleased to see Trump pursuing goals in line with Moscow's agenda. That's right. The way logic works, if you're a leftist now, is no invasion of Ukraine. That doesn't mean the guy in charge was doing a good job. He was actually doing such a pro-Russian job that they didn't want to invade Ukraine, which is a totally separate issue. But what the heck are they talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Russia collusion was really a stage of Trump derangement syndrome, but that Trump derangement syndrome continues on to this day. Which then brings me to yesterday's interview with Donald Trump, which made a lot of headlines in the news here at home and around the world. I sat down with former President Trump along with Clay Travis, my co-host on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton show, and we talked to Donald Trump about a whole range of issues. What's going to happen in Ukraine? What's the situation with China? What about our southern border? We touched on a lot of things. Certainly news was made, but the issue that they focused in on, that the media focused in on, was they said that Donald Trump called Putin a genius. Now, he said that the move he made was genius in the context of also pointing out that it never would have happened while Trump was president because he wouldn't have allowed it because he doesn't want it. But somehow saying that Putin made a genius move while Biden is a bumbling buffoon is taken as evidence. This is the way they view things. That's taken as evidence of some kind of support for what Putin is doing. This is just nonsense. Here is actually what Trump said. Here's the whole clip. Listen.
Well, what went wrong was a rigged election, and what went wrong is a candidate that shouldn't be there and a man that has no concept of what he's doing. I went in yesterday and there was a television screen, and I said, this is genius. Putin declares a big portion of the Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. Oh, that's wonderful. So Putin is now saying it's independent, a large section of Ukraine. I said, how smart is that? And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. That's the strongest peace force. We could use that on our southern border. That's the strongest peace force I've ever seen. There were more army tanks than I've ever seen. They're going to keep peace all right. No, but think of it. Here's a guy who's very savvy. I know him very well, very, very well. By the way, this never would have happened with us. Had I been in office, not even thinkable. This would never have happened. But here's a guy that says, I'm going to declare a big portion of Ukraine independent. He used the word independent. And we're going to go out and we're going to go in and we're going to help keep peace. You got to say that's pretty savvy. And you know what the response was from Biden? There was no response.
He's assessing the tactics that Putin, a strongman, a thug, a tyrant, is using here. And that should be pretty clear when you look at the actual context, because he also says it would never happen while Trump was president. So he clearly does not support this, but the media went crazy with, oh my gosh, Trump is supporting Putin. They'll say all kinds of stuff. They were saying that for 4 years when there was no basis for it, but they keep saying it to this day. Here's Joe Scarborough. Who does he vote for? Who does he believe in? What does he support? This guy, well, he supports whatever the biggest check from MSNBC supports. That's all that really matters to him. But here he is saying that, well, Trump was praising Putin, and that's basically treason. Watch.
I think it's really important to emphasize that this sort of trope in American politics coming from the far right, also parts of the far left, only feed into Moscow's grand strategy here.
And I'm so glad you used the word useful idiot. That's what we conservatives called people on the far left throughout the Cold War that were constantly apologizing for Soviet leaders. You can take it all the way back into the 40s and the 50s who were constantly apologizing for Joseph Stalin. We now have useful idiots on the Trump right that are apologizing for Vladimir Putin. The term fits them tightly, like a glove, Mika.
No one's apologizing for Putin, and Scarborough and those like him aren't useful idiots. They're just idiots. Pretty straightforward, really.